I would like to call the special board meeting back. I would like to call the special board meeting back to order. The time is now 9:18. Lord have mercy. We are now back in open session. Okay, I will now call upon Ms. Murphy to present the academic committee of a whole action items to the board. Ms. Murphy? Okay, so.
Good evening, board. Good evening. The motion and the second. Item 25, authorization for the item from the EEP career plan grant.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing there is none, as I call your name, I'd like to take a roll call vote. As I call your name, signify by saying yes to support or nay not to support. Vice President Danielle Green,
Yes.
Dr. Joyce, Mr. Chris Del Moroni,
Yes.
Pastor Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Adrian Walker.
Yes.
And for myself, it is a yes. Ms. Laura, what say you?
I wanted to table that,
Well, we voted yes, so,
voted yes, so no.
okay, so the motion passes, 6 yes, 1 no. Next, Ms. Murphy, can you please continue?
Yes, I seek a motion and a second to approve action item 25.18, authorization to purchase approved items from the amended elementary and secondary school emergency relief formula funds ESSER 2 grant tonight.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
So
Ms. Laura?
I think trustee Del Moroni had a question.
Either way,
first.
go.
This is, I have several questions and I'd like to make a recommendation that we move to table this so that we can have time to have a subcommittee, grant committee, so that we can discuss this further.
Is there any support for Ms. Laura?
Yeah.
I got a question for Ms. Murphy.
Ms.
Is there
Green?
anything we need to be concerned about as time sensitive? Because I know a lot of deadlines are connected to grants, and so I'm just want to make sure there's nothing that's time sensitive.
Definitely, as we are building grants and making plans, obviously, things are, and we're in the middle of a school year and we're trying to have continuous service to students. So, timelines are always of the essence for us when we're talking about approving grants and funds. So.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
So is Ms. Murphy, Ms. Donpre wants to say something. Ms. Donpre, can you come up to the? Come up to the table. Good evening, Ms. Donpre.
We have to complete final expenditure reports for the grant years. And so the grant year for ESSER ended September 30th, but we are allowed to be able to expend funds for a maximum of 60 days. But we have to submit our final expenditure reports by November 29th. So if we had to delay this will jeopardize us being able to expend all the funds and complete our final expenditure reports.
Okay.
November 29th is the last day that we can submit our final expenditure report.
And I'd like for us to keep in mind, we have a Thanksgiving holiday. Just because we gonna be here, don't mean whoever we gonna deal with is gonna be there. So Take that into consideration, board, Mr. Kaplan.
Also take into consideration something I think we talked about the other day is amendments can happen. Amendments can happen. We can, I'm not saying we want to come back and amend, but we can come back as a board if there's things that we decide with our community as we begin to talk to the community and we want something done differently, we can amend. So just because you approve doesn't mean
You can't make changes.
As we should. And so we would be in violation of submitting our reports on time.
And the consequence for that could be,
Right, I can't, I don't want to make it up and tell you the
Okay,
consequence.
but we don't want to do that.
We don't want to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other, Mr. Del Maroney?
Is there any time limit as to when the funds have to be spent?
Yes, so there's deadlines, and I know there were board members on the presentation today with Kevin Walters, which I think is phenomenal. So thank you all for investing that time to participate in that. So yes, each ESSER grant has a different sunset date. So the expenditure period, everything has to be expended in that time period. Kevin reiterated that to us today. There is what they call a tidings period, a year after, 12 months after, where you can have the opportunity to spend the funds. However, we won't receive that full 12 months because our SEA, which is the state education agency, has to have time for us to complete and review the final reports that we must submit. So every grant is on a timeline, and they were very clear. They've been very clear from the beginning that there is no carryover for this. You have to spend and stay within the dates and the timelines of the grant period, so.
So in order to meet the deadline for the expenditures, in order to meet the deadline for the filing, can we move up that, what do I want to say, subcommittee meeting earlier than what it would normally be scheduled to get the information we need and then also to be timely on the two issues as a board?
And what is the information? This is a point of
Well,
information for me. What is the
The
information
questions that
Ms. Laura has?
and
And what are
I
those?
have a few questions, but
Okay.
The,
So,
the meeting wouldn't have to be moved up. I'm recommending that we have a special meeting that would be, so that we could go over the details of this, so that we don't have to hold up
Okay.
this meeting tonight.
okay, well, this is the thing. We finna leave next week to go to Grand Rapids. We in November. I just want to explain to the board while we're making these decisions what we're up against, because next week, Wednesday night, you gotta leave Flint. So you can be in Grand Rapids for them classes that the district is paid for. So that means you missing next Wednesday night. I ain't coming to no meeting next Wednesday night and get on the highway. And we stay in here a long time. So we gotta think about that as a board. Then Thursday, you're gonna be in class all day. Friday, you're gonna be in class all day. And Saturday, you're gonna be in class till early noon. Then you come back home. So then you talking about Monday, that puts you at, let me see, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So now you're looking at about the 20th. Now this is the Thanksgiving week. So we can have our subcommittee meeting all we want to, but now we're looking at the 20th of November. So now we get our subcommittee meeting. After you had a subcommittee meeting, you gotta have a board meeting. So you can get all this hashed out and voted on in proper form. Then after we do that, they got to get their reports together based off whatever you done voted on in this meeting. They got to compile that information. Hope they get it together in time to make that 29th date. So I just want y'all to understand, if we gonna have a subcommittee meeting and we gonna hold this up, we got to have a board meeting the next day. Then. We can't shuck it and then you still pushing it because it's a holiday, and just because you willing to push it don't mean wherever they sending this information to, they willing to push it. So go ahead, Ms. McNeil.
I think, in my opinion, just me thinking, since this says on page 9, you can make an amendment to this. If you see something that you want to do, just write it down and they're offering to make an amendment. I don't think we should have to hold it up. If we can make an amendment, would that satisfy you?
No, there's like several things on here that I think are really troubling. And I mean, I've had questions for a while. I mean, either we hash it out now or we have a subcommittee meeting. I was just recommending that we have a different meeting because that was the recommendation of our council.
Well, the thing.
So do you want me to just start going line by line and asking questions?
No, because the thing is this, Ms. Kiana Ben brought this to us a couple board meetings ago, and we done tabled this. So we could have had a subcommittee meeting by now if that's what we was gonna do, but I'm just one person on the board. Mr. Walker?
Yeah, I just had a question about so these funds are the reimbursable funds, correct? Now, how does the amending process work with reimbursable funds?
So we submit, the budget that you have is submitted in the grants management system called MEGS. So we enter all those line items in MEGS. If we are going through this process and we determine that the district needs have changed, we budgeted for hotspots, but we have another grant that's gonna pay for that. So that money, maybe we only spent $2,000 out of that line item opposed to the 500,000 that we said that we needed for that purpose. We would go into MEGS, the grant management system, put our application in modifications, make the modifications in that grant application system, and then resubmit the grant to MDE. They would then review the modifications, and if they're in line with the intent and purpose of the funds, they would approve the grant and put the grant back in grant funds available. And then say we took that, we just changed that line item for hotspots to $2,000, and we put that $8,000 that we didn't need into curriculum supplies. Then we would begin to procure those curriculum supplies, and then we would submit our invoices to MDE. Mrs. Dumpre's office does that through the CMS system, and they send that money into the district's accounts within like 72 hours or something like that, 48 hours. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because, my position is I definitely don't want to leave no money on the table. But I also want to make sure that, again, we're able to have an opportunity to do the due diligence with the board members who have questions. So if I'm understanding it correctly, we can still pass tonight, have an opportunity to have conversation about some of the line items, and then again, go through that amendment process if, we deem as a board that we want to configure things differently, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This, unlike the consolidated application, which is our title grants, we can amend those one time. So we have an initial application that we submit, and then we have carryover where we have an opportunity to amend. So because these are emergency relief funds, they understand that your needs in responding to an emergency may be evolving or changing than what it looked like at the beginning of the emergency. And so they being MDE, have allowed for multiple amendments as districts have identified their evolving needs. So.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, Miss Laura? Then we'll go to Mr. Demarone.
So
Me.
are there some line items that we can just ask questions about right now or eliminate them?
We're on action item, what number now?
Which page you on? The page.
Action item
25.
25.18.
What
And that's
page?
page
What
9, 8, 25.8, 25.18.
No. I'm talking, so that, like, we're on this action item and I'm going through some of the,
What page?
well, I was answering Carol's, she asked what action item it was.
No, I'm
And so
saying it was
you're asking-
action item 25.18 that we are in the middle of discussion on.
So, okay, page 16. We have a recommendation for $180,000 for an intercom system, and I'm wondering.
What page is that?
16.
Is that action item 25.18?
Yes.
Okay.
So how it was determined that we needed an intercom system?
So what, I'm trying to remember, the district had procured a safety grant, and we did an assessment in the buildings because some of the intercom systems from building to building, from classroom to classroom, from the main office are not operable. And so because, again, these are emergency funds, in the event of emergency, if we needed to send out an all call to staff or the students, some of the systems are not operable. So that's what that cost is outlined for as we are looking at ways to address emergency situations in the schools. That's where that particular line item came from. So I did have quotes from a particular company to build the budget from. We have to kind of have an idea of how do you build a budget? How much money would it be? How much is it for each site? So let's take that line item for an example. Say, for instance, we determine we don't want to make investments in every school right now because you all are determining the future of the district, right? So maybe we know we need to do these 3 schools because we understand as a board that they're going to continue to operate. So maybe we need to amend that line item later down because we're not going to do every site. So that's some of the options that we have as we're looking at these budgets, but it's in there because it is a way for us to respond. If there was an emergency in a school, we need to be able to communicate across that school building. And we have some gaps right now.
Do we do an RFP for this?
That happens after you all approve the budget.
Okay, so we
one-
would approve, so this isn't something that's been done. This is something that
Oh,
we're
no,
approving
no.
and we would do an RFP. So where do we get the numbers, like 12 buildings at $15,000 per system?
As mentioned before, I get quotes. So a lot of times when we build budget, it's like, I don't even know how we're gonna pay for this yet, but if this is a need that exists, we
Gotta
got
put
to
it
know
in
what the scope of the need is. So, for me as a budget person, I'm looking at, if I could take care of every school and every scholar get everything that they need, what would that look like?
Okay. So that would answer my question about 213, about the cardiac emergency responses. Like I had a similar question, but that would answer that. So thank you for that. And then we had several line items for internet hotspots. Is that something that overlaps with Bartek's contract, or I'm not?
It's a good question. So what the district, because again, this is an emergency response grant in a lot of ways. We understand, and we're learning as we're navigating this pandemic, that there may be a need for us to transition back to distance learning. And students, not all of our students have access to internet at home. So that's another good example for us to use, because I don't know if you guys remember when Kevin Vaughn, our E-rate consultant, came to the board. So I worked with Kevin on what was called an unmet need grant for our scholars for one-on-one laptops and internet connection. Well, we did receive notification like a couple of weeks ago that we were awarded that grant. So those internet hotspots are service. It's just like almost a cell phone, but it's just a hotspot for internet that we distribute to every scholar. So not only will they be able to use it for, and it's content filtered, so let me say that, but they can use it for homework, but in the event that maybe the infection rates went back up and we had a need to go back to distance learning, they will already have the computer device that they need and the internet that they need. So we have to pay a monthly service to T-Mobile.
Okay.
In order for every scholar in our district to have internet connection to do their classwork or homework.
With these one-on-one devices, I don't even know if this is even related to this, but it just, Adrian, you were talking about, is there a problem with getting the number of devices that we need? Because there was an email about first come, first served basis.
Yeah, so there was, earlier this week, there was an email from Mr. Hemwood at Holmes talking about device pickup for parents and our scholars, and basically said the devices will be given away on a first come, first served basis until the supply runs out. And I didn't know, or we were having conversations about whether or not that's an issue of supply in terms of devices, or whether or not this is a funding piece for us to approve in order to make sure ultimately that every scholar at that school has access to a device.
I thought that's what.
I
we
would
got.
say it's a little bit of both, right? You know, procurement of computers has been difficult because everybody needed computers at one time. And so we've even seen the pricing for Chromebooks that we use a lot go up. And so another thing that we're required to do, and I had this, we experienced this last year, anytime we purchase anything with federal funds, we have to inventory it. We have to place an asset tag on it and put it into inventory. And so that takes like a lot of time when you're ordering 2,000, 3,000 Chromebooks at once. So some of that with homes, they received quite a few recently because they were asset tagged. Bartech images each one, loads the software on it that students need, loads the content filtering software. So, you know, there is some supply chain issues that we have, but then there's some other things in the district that we have to do to prepare a device to be distributed to a scholar. So our goal is to be 2-to-1 with every scholar, meaning that they have a device that stays at the school, that they use at school, and then they have a device that they use at home. We're still working to achieve that goal, some because of procurement, because we need resources available to make those purchases, and some of it is because of distribution.
How, were you still?
I'm
at?
not done, no. So with the guest teachers, for filling teacher vacancies because of illness and stuff, is that something that's already been used that we need the money for, or is this something that's anticipated?
Both. So we have, because this is an amended budget, because ESSER 2 funds, we received an initial $19 million. And now they gave us our full allocation, which got us to the 44 million. So some of this we already approved, right? So the building subs are already in place, but we had to expand that budget. So with the amendment, we place more money in that line item to continue that service as we're still having, unfortunately, teachers being quarantined and different things like that.
Okay, because it just said new and I wasn't sure.
So let me just, thank you for
Yeah.
lifting that. So one of the things that I do for my reviewer at MDE, if I'm adding something new to a budget, I'll put a header in there for them. So they will know, because they're reviewing 400, 500 applications. So I try to help mine be a little easier for them to review. So I always put a heading of new in there if this is a brand new budget item that I'm giving them. So that's just for them to know I approved these other line items previously in the submission, and this is an amendment, and this is a new line item that I need to review.
No, it's helpful for us to
So-
appreciate it.
Okay, just 1 second. Let me ask you before you go to the Chromebooks. So if we go back virtual and every student is at home, we do have enough Chromebooks to cover every student in our district at home.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Because I heard you say one at school and one at home. And I would think in order to have one at school and one at home, if all the kids went home, every child at home, since ain't none at school, should have a laptop.
So we're trying to, again, to position ourselves to be able to pivot at any time. So even for our quarantine students, I'm just putting this out here as a goal. So if me and Dumpre are in class together and she's positive, so she goes home quarantine and I'm a close contact and I go home. We were just at school the day before, but I can't go back to school, get my books, get my Chromebook because I'm positive or she's positive and I'm a close contact. So I need to have a device that just stays at home.
No, I understand that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if we shut down tomorrow,
We would have to use some of the ones that's already at the school.
that's what I'm saying. We have
I'm
enough in the district at this time
Yes, ma'am.
that we could take some from the buildings and every student in our district that's at home under quarantine due to COVID, which is where all of us will be, will have a device.
Yes, ma'am. 100%.
That's all I want to know.
100%. Yes.
All right, Ms. Laura, go
Okay,
ahead.
and then
Mr. Dell, I'm sorry.
I just have a few more questions, please. So the Lincoln Educational Platform for GISD, that's just the learning management system?
So,
Or-
we were doing remote learning last year with our teachers in Flint because of the options that we had from MDE because of the infection rates in our community. This year, the people accounting regulations changed. And so we were doing asynchronous learning. Students were online with the teacher. So those provisions that were made last year in the pupil accounting manual because of the pandemic have been changed to say you either have to have a full virtual program or students have to be face-to-face. So some of those options that we had last year because of the pandemic, we don't have. So the district doesn't currently have a K-8 virtual learning program where the student is 100% virtual and the teacher is a certified teacher. So we had to pay tuition for our students to do virtual learning. Because our teachers are teaching students face-to-face, they can't also teach the students that are 100% virtual. That would just be way too much for them. So Mr. Jones' academic team, they explore different learning platforms because we have almost like 161 students that parents said, I don't feel comfortable yet with my scholar coming back face-to-face in the building for a myriad of reasons. Some students are medically fragile, some of them live with medically fragile adults. Some parents are just hesitant of putting their student back in school. So this is a virtual learning platform. It has every student in 6 subjects. They have virtual teachers that they're connected to that teach the courses, but they're not asynchronous. So it's 100% virtual. And then the district has to assign a mentor to each scholar in order to support their, their development through the virtual learning program. So it comes at a cost for us, for the students to have access to the platform.
But is there a reason we're doing it through GISD and we're not doing it in-house?
We just don't have the teachers. Every student that's on a virtual learning platform has to be connected to a Michigan certified teacher. And so, because again, our primary focus has been to focus on the scholars that are face-to-face, where we have still yet some vacancies there. We didn't have staff to pull to just work with the virtual students, unfortunately. So.
Okay. So page 22, 226, extra duty stipends for data technician and programmers. Is this in addition to the 21,000 bonus that the staffs are like, who are the 3 staff members and why are they getting $10,000 for 3 years?
So one of the things that was required to do the virtual learning, we use a student information system called Synergy. And in order for us to, it's almost like we had to, so I used to be a pupil accounting person, so I'm sorry, I apologize if this is getting technical and deep in the weeds. So in Synergy, we have, each school has their own, you can select which school you're in to operate. So in order to set up the virtual school, our programmers had to do additional work that they wouldn't have to do if we weren't trying to offer this. They had to go in, create a virtual school, enter virtual teachers. Each teacher has to have a PIC number. If the attendance has to be set up, the grading system, because even though the students are connected to Lincoln Learning, which is the virtual learning platform, we're still counting those students as a part of our membership. So we still get their FTE. So we still have to maintain their attendance, maintain their school records. Our virtual mentors have to put contacts in there and have contacts with the parents and the students. So this was increase their scope of work beyond what they would have normally had to manage for the buildings that we have in place. And so the administration felt that it was honorable to acknowledge this extra work that people have had to do as a result to make this offering available to our scholars.
Okay. And the same thing with line item 226 on page 23. the extra duty stipends, 5 directors, administrators, and 2 administrative assistants.
So that is because of the vacancies we have. We have the continuous improvement director vacancy, and we also have a vacancy from Mrs. Tomasi's position that's been vacated, and directors have had to assume those responsibilities. And so those are due to some of the vacancies that we have in the district.
Is there some way that we can eliminate this from the budget? Because this is something that I don't recommend. We're going to be consolidating some stuff with the jobs. This doesn't seem necessary to me, this line item. This is, yeah, 226 on page 23. So I would recommend that, I don't want to vote for this if we go through this line by line. And this is something that our legal counsel suggested we not do.
So what is going on here at this point? Because I thought we were still in discussion. What's going on?
We're in discussion. I'm just like bringing this up. This is why I wanted to have a committee meeting to discuss these. So this line item on page 23, 226, it's, we're talking about being able to amend this budget. And I'm saying right now, I don't want to approve the budget with this line item in it.
It's 2226 on page 23, so the top one or the bottom one?
Oh, God, that's right.
Yeah, 226 is a function code, so it's probably
Okay,
a
I
lot of
see what
those
you're
in there.
saying. So it's the new extra duty stipends for
Okay.
5 directors, administrators, and 2
Okay.
administrative assistants.
And
And
it is
there's some redundancy in some of the way that we have our organizational chart that we need to rectify anyway. And so this seems to me to be superfluous.
Okay, I would love to know what that looks like because we have folks doing work currently, and I don't know what you mean by what you're saying. So I don't want to go to work tomorrow and these duties that people are currently doing. I don't know what.
Well, these are extra duty stipends
So,
in addition to the $21,000 that we've already
Right.
allocated to people. So
so we have assistants, so we have we have Mo doing some,
this doesn't involve Mo, does it?
yes.
No, this doesn't.
Yes, it does. Extra duties assistant, that will be her. That will be Pam Beard. That will also be the folks that are being, the continuous improvement that we sent bias back to the school.
Yeah.
So that work is being done by the directors. They did it last year. They're doing it again this year. And so I don't know what I just don't want to make sure I want to make sure the work gets done.
Ms. Green,
So-
I'm sorry.
No
Mr.
problem.
Kevin, wait, Mr. Kevin is still speaking. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead,
want to
Mr.
make sure that if you do take this out, I understand how this work is going to get completed if you take this out, because we have 5 directors and 2 administrative assistants right now doing data, doing other work. And maybe I'm just not privy right now to what you're speaking about, with all due respect. But I'm saying this is where Ms. Bias is in the school building,
I
so she
remember that.
can't do that work.
We were just recommended not to approve it though. So I mean,
Well,
that's why we need to have further discussion.
Well, yeah,
about it.
we're having the discussion now, and he cleared it up, and I do remember this now. Ms. Bias got a new position, working with the partners. Ms. Bias is also still the principal over at Brownell. Okay, that's 2 big jobs that Ms. Bias is carrying. Really, Ms. Bias needs some support because we asked Ms. Bias to be in 2 places at one time.
But she's not. She's now just 100% the principal. She's 100% the principal. And even when she was doing the continuous improvement, she was not doing the full job
All right.
because she was the principal. And that's the
It was
reason why we
divided
have the
up.
directors
I remember
still
that.
doing the extra duty stipend work.
I remember that.
I just want to make it plain.
Okay,
We need
Ms.
that
Green
work.
was next.
I think by taking this out would be jumping the gun because we do still have people doing extra duties. And until we get those positions filled, we need to keep this in place and make sure they get compensated. I think, and it just, we would have to keep it there because the responsibilities are being taken upon by people who already have responsibilities.
Ms. Green,
Yes,
just as
ma'am.
a reminder, we did go over, this is the chart we went over in the academic subcommittee
Yeah.
meeting. We took the time to identify every position and what was happening.
Yeah.
And this is the line item that supports that conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ms. Murphy. So we can't eliminate this.
But
People have to be compensated.
We gotta vote on it.
And we can always, if we get
Right.
people to fill the position, we can make the amendments like.
Well, let me
Ms.
say this,
Murphy said, correct.
Ms. Laura is just making recommendations.
Right.
We gotta have at least a majority of a full vote
Mhm.
for any of this to stand. She just recommended. At this point, with us being, well, somebody had their hand up, Mr.
I did.
Delmarone. Mr.
Thank
Delmarone,
you.
then
So-
Dr. Joy.
So my question is,
and then myself.
I'm gonna, for sake of our, so were they working beyond their normal hours then?
So.
Because where I'm going with this, if they're working 9 to 5 in their regular job, and now they take on all these extra responsibilities, are they still working 9 to 5? And what happened to the work that they used to do from 9 to 5? So I'm not saying the work didn't get done, will not get done, but if it's getting done in the same time frame, I'm not understanding the expenditure. Or maybe some of the funds that are being used now to pay them during their regular hours, 9 to 5, should be, let me say, reprogrammed somewhere else because this money is coming in.
So it's not like 9 to 5 work. It's they're overseeing, they're making sure things are getting done, whether they're doing it at 8 o'clock at night at home, whether they're doing it 6 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Some of these duties with the partnership and the data management, these things are, let's take, who's one of the ones doing the extra
You
duty?
could, even looking at pupil accounting
There you go.
or the data person.
Right.
The data deadline to submit a count is at midnight, right? Because they understand that people are going to be there till midnight. We don't pay hourly overtime that way. We work until the job gets done.
And I
So-
want to say this to Mr. Delmarone. Remember back here, Ms. Sharice just talked to us when I wanted to get a time clock, and she said that they were a special kind of employee and that they might work from 9, they might work at 6. Is that not it? They make the same kind of employee? I'm just making, because she was saying that, yeah, I understand. Well, let me see. I guess it's something I asked about, so that wasn't privilege. But anyway, so it was one of those jobs that she said isn't a typical 9 to 5. They might have to do some work at 7 from home. And so these are those employees with those kind of flex hours that she was speaking of back there, just to enlighten you a little bit. Okay, we had Dr. Joyce.
Oh, I lost my thought. I think what we have to think clearly as a board, we have in special education, I just give an example. Legal or financial difficult. My understanding from studying these ESSA and going to these different meetings, even in our training with MASB, these funds that we see, and it said amendment. So if there's something left or over, they could probably roll them over into another fund account. Speaking to the consultant, which we hired, we said that she's the best. She went through this with me. in my house, in my office, her and I on the phone, I'm in Zoom almost, and clarify everything that we're talking. She explained what was new. Then we just had, I don't know if the new board member was on, Kevin Walters, ESSA fund. He was saying the same thing. She just only repeated what he had said. This have to be done. It's nothing that, because we don't understand it, doesn't make it wrong, if I can say that. And I just don't think we can hold this up because special ed is going up. And also keeping in mind, we have 600 kids due to the pandemic that went into foster care. They're gonna be coming where? To Flint Community Schools. So your enrollment is gonna keep increasing. We're short of staff. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do. I just recommend that we pass this. And then in the amendment, they said it in the training today, Kevin Walters on records, that we can make amendments. You guys have a lot to do. Listen to what they have to do. We just got the easy part. We got the easy part, but if I look at the document, they don't get away with absolutely nothing with Kevin. And he goes over and over, some question I have about construction and all of that, and it's in here. But guess what? It was already approved before we got it from MDE that you presented to them. MDE looked at this and said, your house is in order, and they bring it to the board. I had Sakowski to look at this because I was ignorant in some things that I just did not know. And she explained it to me and said that she didn't see anything that's wrong, but yes, we can have questions. So if this would help anybody, if you go to them schools yourself, we're in a lot of trouble. We got some kids with some emotional issues that go way beyond your understanding. And we got to have as much funds as we can to address these issues. So we got leaking roof. Only thing I can say that we need to support this. If come back and we find something, let's just make an amendment to it. If the board could get that support.
I say we ask, do you have some more questions for some other items, Ms. Laura?
You sure?
I say at this point, ask the question. Either we're gonna accept it tonight or either we're gonna table it tonight, but let's ask the question. So is there any other discussion? Okay, so at this time, we're gonna take a roll call vote to accept or to decline. When I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept. Go
One
ahead.
more. I do have one more. So what happened to the community input? Was the community supposed to give in?
That's a 3.
That's the ESSER 3. It's not for the ESSER
No.
2. So, okay, so we don't have to worry about getting the community's input on
No,
this
if it was a
particular-
community event or something, but this is something that we have to do for the district regardless to who says what. This is the state.
No, I understand that, as Dr. Joyce said, that's a requirement for ESSER 3.
Yeah.
When ESSER 2 was initially rolled out, I don't know if you all remember, Mr. Jones was giving monthly updates to the board of our COVID plan. So
Right.
that, those monthly updates met our stakeholder involvement, and we gave opportunity at every board meeting for questions to be asked or any comments to be made regarding that. And so that that requirement was not in place for this one, so.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Is there any other, Mr. Walker?
No,
Is that
go
you?
ahead.
Okay, we're gonna ask the question at this time. As I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept what Ms. Murphy has presented to us for 25.18 or nay not to accept for action item 25.18. Ms. Laura,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yeah.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Del Moroni,
Yes.
Mr. Pastor Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
And it is a yes for myself. Action item 25.18 passes. Okay, let me get back. All right. Moving right along.
Thank you.
The board, okay,
Yes, thank you.
Did you have something you want to say, Ms. McNeil?
Go ahead.
Okay. I also have we have some comments from the public. We'll be taking those right now. Could we give Miss Carolyn Shannon Court count? I got to give me some glasses so I can see. I can't see. Gotta have 3 years. What you back?
My name is Carolyn Shannon, and I'm from Christ the King Roman Catholic Church on Lapeer. And one year we gave out blankets for Walter Scott students at Christmas time. So this year we had money left over because of the generous donors. We're going to have a Christmas luncheon. And we want to show the students that we love them. And I hope that it would be exposed to the public so in each community they can do the same, to have a Christmas, the first week in December, a luncheon at Walter Scott School. Before the pandemic, we gave out blankets. And I want you to know that we love Walter Scott. I am vintage. I knew Walter Scott. And I like to keep his legacy going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next member of the
And you know, Flynn is moving forward and, you know, I enjoy this board, you know. We did a lot of good things together, the community and the board together, but it's not over with. And as an activist, I'm on this side of the mic. And I can say and do things that you can't. When you get on that board, you have to set your activism down a couple of notches. Everything isn't like it seems, and you don't have to go after everything all the time. That side of the mic. My lane, and I learned, my lane is to be an agitator, and my lane isn't to be on a board, a council, or any of that, because I don't want my voice taken away. But once you got that position, your voice has to change in a certain way. Your attitude has to change in a certain way. You don't have to go after everything. We did some things earlier this year. We have to give Mr. Jones room to operate. His job is a superintendent. You are his boss, but you don't do his job. And you have to give him that room to expand and move this school district forward. We don't have to question everything all the time. And if we see something wrong, let me agitate. Let me come to you. Let me say, hey, we got some problems, y'all. But y'all are supposed to work together. Y'all don't supposed to agitate each other. The school district need new schools. We said this over and over. And y'all got in position to where y'all can move forward. We're not moving forward. We are at a standstill right now. We need the advisory committee, like last month. We need that right now. Right now, y'all. because it's other people who's trying to dig in somebody's pockets and they trying to take what we need. Might not think we need it, but we need it. And we need to work together and do the things that we need to do. Can y'all ask Mr. Jones, what plan do he has right now? And do we have the advisory committee? Do we have plans for that? Can we just take at least 15 minutes before we go? I know everybody's tired, but can we just hear that out and y'all give him the authority to start with the advisory committee? Like we need it like right now. So can y'all just hear that part and so that we can, have new schools started or they work on refurbishing schools by next year so we can start getting students and we can be sustainable and grow our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodson. I don't know if Mr. Kevlin wanted to respond or not. I did want to say that Mr. Kevlin did speak on working with Mott and the relationship, and he's feeling very positive about it. He thinks we're moving in the right direction. And I'll let him speak for himself on the work that he's been doing in the district.
Testing 1, 2, okay. We have at the order of our board to start the relationship again with the Mount Foundation. Had a couple of conversations with board members. We do have some slides to show of some envisioning based on the conversation that the board has had with Mr. Ridgway White over the last, I guess, 2 months. It was about 2 months ago. And so myself and Mr. Thomas Parker has been talking, and he asked me, what did I think? What I'm envisioning for an advisory board? Well, we do have that. I can share that with the board. We think that we have to involve our community, and we believe that it needs to be I believe that it needs to be community first, and then we have an advisory team, and then from the advisory team that moves what the community have stated, and then you bring it to our team, the superintendent, and the team that's going to be working to bring things to the board, and the board has the final say on what all those folks have brought down that pipeline. And so we feel like it should be community first. And then we bring it into the advisory team, which will be community partners, also grassroots, activists, all those people. You can't leave people out. We have to have all people at that table, but you can't have 200 people at the table at all times or you'll never get anything done. So the advisory committee is very important to this. And this really means that, and this knocks me out. If I leave, if one of you are gone, this advisory team still can move this district forward and advise our board, and the board still has the power to make those decisions at the end of the day. We can get this going yesterday, but I would need the board to allow that to happen. And so we're ready. I just want to make sure that, and there, again, I want to say that we have met about getting our community involved, but I think that structure, if that structure is there, that structure will live on no matter who's on this board and no matter who's at this seat as the superintendent.
And I'd just like to throw in, Ms. Green, and I'd just like to throw in, Mr. Kevlin has been doing a phenomenal job. I mean, oh my God, coming into this in the blind with the issues that we had, Mr. Kevlin has worked relentlessly. He has been so kind in sharing the information, working with people that we haven't been able to get our relationship together. Mr. Kevlin is just so charismatic at taking care of the business. I just love him. I'm gonna be honest, but that's enough. I can go on and on about him. And I don't want him to start feeling some kind of way. He might get to blushing under his mask. All right, Ms. Green, and then Ms.
I want to make a motion to give Mr. Jones the blessing to move forward with the advisory committee. So we
Absolutely.
can move the district forward. And his vision sounds great to me. And I know I worked under Mr. Jones on my internship for my master's degree. And he was so fabulous and so patient and so kind and understanding of me not knowing anything.
Right.
So I want to make a motion that we give him the blessing he needs to move forward.
And I second it. It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion, Ms. Laura?
So when I made the motion to reopen discussions with Ridgway White and the Mott Foundation, the motion was to bring him before the board so that we could have an open meeting with him and having an open discussion. I did not make the motion to open discussions with these community stakeholders behind, again, without the full involvement of the board. So I'm actually a little dismayed at the turn of events with this. Like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but what I made the motion for was to bring Mr. White to the board to have an open discussion in an Opens Meeting Act before the community. So
That doesn't stop that, board member.
okay, but I'm not happy with having one particular stakeholder exalted above others. This is, I want this out in the open. I want the community involved. I'm tired of having the Mott Foundation having special access to the board and having special meetings where other community stakeholders aren't given the same priority. And so I'm concerned that we're talking about having an advisory committee, as it hasn't been created yet, you're saying, or it has?
It hasn't been, I have suggestions of how that should look, but I have not reached out to any community partners to say, hey, I want you on a committee, because I'm not going to move until I get that permission to move. But I just want to say, I don't think that we're exalting. I think that Mott is reaching out a hand and saying, here's some money. And so, and when I say that, here's an opportunity for us to build some buildings. I don't know that we have other people that are reaching out to us and saying that we can help build buildings for you. So when I said we need to talk to the community first, we're talking about bringing in anyone that wants to come and to talk to us about what they want to see. It's twofold. You have renovation.
I'd like to finish
Excuse
though.
me, excuse me. Wait a minute.
I'd like to finish
Okay, you
because
can,
I'm not done.
wait a
with
minute,
my-
hold on, 1 second, because he's speaking and you said what you said about Mott. Now
No, I
he's-
didn't, but I said that the motion, and we can go back into the notes, the motion was to bring Mr. White in front of the board to have an open meeting. So that's what the motion
We
was
heard the
for.
motion, we got your motion, but wait, hold on, let me say
And
this.
now there's a motion to.
Wait a minute,
like,
she got
to-
a right to make a motion too. Excuse me, Miss Laura, hold on. Mr. White is a grown man. Just because you made a motion at this board, hold on, let me finish. Let me
Please.
finish. Let me
Carol,
finish.
don't talk to me like that.
Look, I'm
I'm tired of it.
Well, I
So-
don't care. I have a right to say something too.
Right, but don't talk down to me.
I'm not talking down to you.
Yes,
I'm
you are.
telling you facts, and the facts is
No.
you're not his supervisor.
I
and
am
you're-
not his supervisor, but the motion was made to have an open meeting in front of
And
the
it was,
community.
and it was. We're not denying that. But just because you made the motion, he don't have to giddy up and come over here because you made the motion. We asked
didn't
Mr.
say that.
Kevlin and Mr. Parker to get together and talk to Mr. White and set that meeting up. So if it
That's
ain't,
it.
all
And
right
not
then.
having these
So what do
backdoor
her motion got to do with
discussions
what you talking about?
building.
Nothing? Ms.
Knock it
McNeil?
off, Carol.
No, yeah, you ain't gonna disrespect me either. Now I'm tired of you too.
Stop.
Okay, okay.
No, you
Come
stop.
on,
Ms.
board, come on,
McNeil?
let's go. Listen, I think what has happened, Laura, in the past, there was 3 people that met with Ridgway and Mr. Parker, and along with a couple other members, and we had these discussions. We had some discussion about having these community, because keep remember, we couldn't have 4 or 5 board members when we were trying to discuss. Then we made a decision, at their last meeting, that we would not have those type of meetings, that we are open them up. However, what has happened, I am the chairperson of community relation. I am going to remain on that seat because I have put so much into putting this community ad hoc committee together. That's what I was asked to do, and that's what I will continue to do. We had some discussion with board members in these subcommittees that are very uncomfortable because you don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in academic, so I won't be doing academic. Community relation, Mr. Jones, we had these discussions. We had put together, and Adrian, these people that we had to put on this committee. So I think what you're saying is that it was already in process, what we have been talking about. It been in process. And we was going to get to the point where we come to the board.
Excuse me. No, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
So what I say is that we had 2 or 3 months to go before the end of the year, and we switched a subcommittee, which is going to throw things off because we got people the board, because usually when we come out of those meetings, we should inform the board as a whole. That's one of my whole biggest point. The board must be informed as a whole, so we don't have these type of outbursts. We work collectively. Nobody can tell any board member what they can do. One person, no one person can. You have a voice. If you're uncomfortable with something, you have a right to say, I'm uncomfortable with this. I would not perform in a department or committee that I'm not comfortable with. So I'm saying that if we kind of look at the community relations where all of this conversation started, we was working as a team. Mr. Ridgway sat at the table. He was very cooperative. Mr. Parker was at the table. How could we move forward from that last relationship that we had? And so I think, Trustee McIntyre, I understand what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. And she just, Trustee Greenlee just making a motion that we move forward because we already have moved forward. You're saying that the board as a whole did not know anything about it. I have to agree with you guys 100% because we didn't come back as a whole, as a committee and speak to the board as a whole and bring everybody up. That's what I saw. That's what my notes revealed, that we did not come back to the board as a whole, but we have had these discussions. And I think I spoke with you about that.
Excuse me, I just want to get some clarity. First of all, we have board policies and bylaws. The bylaws state if you are the assistant secretary, assistant treasurer, that you are over community relations. So that's why it went the way it went.
Yeah.
I didn't make that up.
No, you didn't.
I'm following the rules. Okay, so it's offensive to me when I do the work. Now, folks could have turned down their new positions if they wanted to stay on their subcommittee. Okay, so now when you take up a new position, it's a subcommittee that's in the bylaws and the board policy that was in place before I got here. Okay, so I'm just trying to follow the rules.
Okay.
Now, since Mr. Adrian took that on, he is over that unless this board goes over the policies collectively and change that, which we missed that opportunity when we didn't have that policy meeting that was scheduled. So with that being said, the policies that was voted on by a collective board legally is the policies that stand. And those are the grounds for that policy.
And I accept
Second,
that.
excuse me, I'm speaking. Excuse me, wait a minute, hold on,
apologize.
let me finish. Let me finish. Secondly, the board that was meeting with the Mott Foundation was not under the community development. It was a special group,
Yeah.
me, you, and Danielle, not no ad hoc committee under the community
Yeah,
chaired
that's true.
such and such. It was not. We got together as a team, as board members, to meet with Ridgeway to try to get the relationship back on track. That's what that was. Thank you. Now, anybody
And I
else who'd
thank
like
you-
to
And I
speak?
thank you for clearing that up. But what I'm saying, Mr. Adrian Walker, to the board, I would continue to work with you, work with those community group that we had. And I just won't be able to perform in those other spots because I'm not comfortable with it. But I will continue to work with you in that aspect. Ms. President McIntyre is correct, because that's how they wrote the last meeting, and we could not get those bylaws changed. Hopefully, first of the year, we can go through our bylaws and take all that stuff out that causes all this chaos. And so on that note, Ms. McIntyre, hope you know that you didn't think that we was hiding anything. It's just that it did not roll out from us from that meeting to the board because other things happened in the midst of us trying to get it to the board. I can't remember what happened, but it was supposed to be rolled out to the board.
Okay, Mr. Del Moroni, then Ms. Green. Mr. Del Moroni.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, it was let me say, the information I had was just before I got on the board, was that talks between the Mott Foundation and the board had kind of broken down. So
We had got it back going before, when we spoke, you and I spoke, and you offered your assistance. And I told you that we had a meeting scheduled to meet with Mr. White and the Mott Foundation.
Well, so at that last meeting, I had brought up my idea that it would be good to meet with the Mott Foundation again.
Yes,
And then a motion was made.
yes.
So now I'm hearing something about a meeting. You said Mr. White will be here. Then I'm going to ask,
I didn't say he was going to be here.
She said she made a motion for him to come, but she didn't say he would be here.
And Mr. White has to confirm when he
That's
can
the
come
only-
here.
well, okay, I just,
Yes.
through you, I thought I heard Dr. Joyce say that he will be here.
No,
That's not my call. I can't tell a grown man where to be.
and Mr. Parker, because Mr. Parker works
Okay,
for the
so-
Mount Foundation,
so
was gonna
we're-
set it up.
Let me ask this then. Where is that at? Is Mr. White coming? Has he been contacted? Has he said yes? We're waiting for a
So-
date. What's going on?
So Mr. Parker is here.
Okay.
If Mr. Parker would like, he can come forward to help with this discussion about, I don't know
Yeah, that's-
what Mr. Ridgway's decisions are. But if you would like to come forward, if the board would like.
He's more than welcome to come forward, because there's no need for us to argue when we have
Okay.
somebody from his house here.
So Mr. Del Morone, as he's coming forward, I think that we're putting the Mott Foundation or Mr. Ridgway, I think we're just thinking that when what I'm saying to the board is no matter who's going to build these schools with us, we still need a structure and we still need to hear from our community and we still need an advisory team. And I don't think that it's wise for us to keep waiting until we meet with a particular person
Exactly.
before we talk to our community about the ideas we have as a district. I'm not saying that we wait. I hope you won't wait. And that's just me as the
Me too.
interim. I hope you won't keep waiting, because if Mr. Ridgway decide that he can't at the time, or he's going to bring a representative, that still doesn't mean we can't work with the Mount Foundation to get the dollars for our children. My whole goal is to see our
Yes.
children have new schools.
That's why I brought it up, to
Yes, sir.
open those discussion and keep that dialogue going.
Yes, sir.
I also mentioned that
It's been
other players could come into the realm, whether it be General Motors or hospitals or whatever, in regards to the new school.
He knew. He don't know. Sorry, Tom.
Mr. Parker's
Yes.
here.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
So thank you for the opportunity. Again, I'm here and I think I'm here just about every meeting since May, just here to be a support, to be a voice and representative of the work of the Mott Foundation. And I'll kind of second the words of Interim Superintendent Jones. Based on some of the prior conversations, we were given the green light to just begin dialogue to ensure that the relationship between the district and the foundation was growing stronger. And in those dialogues, I think we've crafted a kind of a concept around the interim superintendent's vision for the Collective Impact Advisory Committee that aligns with the work and the conversations that have been started to create not just buildings, but buildings and innovation in terms of instruction for the children in the city of Flint. So I'm excited. I'm here for whatever questions that you may have. I absolutely have had conversations with Mr. White. He is engaged and he is knowledgeable about all of the dialogue and conversation that happens between the two. And to your point, it was never designed for the Mott Foundation to be the voice at the table. It was always designed as a more collective impact concept. So back in the summer, when there was a recommendation to or a request to present, it was a group of partners that would have been coming for that presentation. So the collective impact and the community-based aspect of this, as I understand it, has been core at the core of the conversation from the beginning.
Thank you.
We'll be doing that. So whenever Mr. White or any other partner comes, great, they're welcome, please come. Laura's motion should be respected. I'm not omitting her motion. I just want my motion to be considered. That's it.
And then you open it up for discussion
And
right after her.
That's all. No, I didn't mean to imply that. If I did that, I apologize.
Excuse me. What was, I don't forgot the motion. Mr. Pastor Gilbert. Okay, so
He
we
was-
Pastor Gilbert, then Mr. Walker, then we want to hear your motion.
Chris,
Because I don't
What is my
forgot.
motion again?
Yeah, because I
Okay.
don't forgot with all this
Absolutely.
drama.
Well, one of
That's
the
all.
things that I heard Assistant Superintendent Jones say is that he wants to bring it in. That's what he said. And also is that from what Brother Woodson said about being able to expand. Sometimes you got to listen to certain words to get the clarity. And your mind may not be made up, but it is about the scholars.
That's right.
Kids. That's
Yeah.
what it's about.
That's right.
and that's what we're trying to
And
get.
when Brother Woodson said those words, it triggered something. And Brother Jones said that he wants it to pull in the community. That's what we are going to have to. We got to put a different look. We got to put a different look to the board. And I've got questions about Mr. White, and I'm not, but I cannot allow what I feel, what I think about Mr. White or Brother Parker or my neighbors stand in the way of the progress and the expansion of the scholars. I won't do that. I don't have to and I won't. Yet, on the same hand, I want to look Mr. White in the eyes, Chris. That's what I want to do. But that's not the most important thing. It's only important to me. So we've got to be able to rally around something that will cause the community to understand that it is a different day. And we've talked about it, but we haven't done it yet. And so I really heard you, Brother Jones. I was listening. And then, of course, I've been talking to Brother Woodson for too long. But if you listen to him, you just listen to him, he says good things, but you got to listen. And so that's what I wanted to say. I don't see the conflict between Sister Danielle's motion and what Sister McIntyre had already. I don't see the conflict. I do have a personal opinion, but it's only about perhaps an individual. And I have to be able to separate that. And that's why I listened, so I could. Because it's not about Gilbert or Walker. It's about those scholars. So that's all I want to say.
All right, Mr. Del Marone, is that you or then Mr. Walker? Okay,
It doesn't
did you have your hand up?
Yeah, but
Okay, we
I've
violated
already
Mr. Walker.
spoken.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be quick with mine. I've said this before. I think we really have an opportunity to reimagine our school district, right? I know we're having a lot of conversations around the potential of the collective impact agreement and what that could be, but I think there's a lot of cause and effect conversation right now that will impact what we reimagine our school district to be. I think we have to take in that advisory committee and the community as a whole has to take into consideration the Plant Moran study, right? And that data that we got and what that means for moving forward. That the ESSER dollars comes into this conversation, right? Because those ESSER dollars, even though they're flexible, they have restrictions as well. So if we move forward with collective impact agreement, that could potentially allow us to free up the dollars. But the bigger thing that I worry about, what we heard about on the ESSER dollar piece, was around new construction and the RFP process and the bidding and how already they're at 2024 and those ESSER dollars expire then, right? So I do believe like Mr. Woodson mentioned and like Danielle has proposed, time is of the essence right now as it relates to this committee. And the last thing that I'll say, I'm a respecter of policy and titles, but I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Ms. McNeil and her continued help on the Community Relations Committee moving forward. So I welcome that help and I can't step on your toes for the work that you've done. So I think, again, community relations is all of us at the end of the day. So I just want to say I look forward to working continually with you and everyone else as we look to get this right. Thank
If
you.
I'm not mistaken, she is still on that committee with you, right? I didn't, no,
He has
okay.
no help on it. I think
You
it's
on there by
Danielle.
yourself?
Danielle. But we had kind of started this here and you was going into your VP part. But I just want to say this. We all are community relation. It's not about me on the board. I was out at 2 events with Pastor McCarthy and Pastor Power, and the community was just galvanized and excited that we have learned to work with the Mod Foundation. And I spoke of Mr. Parker and all the different things that we are doing. And so they are eager and waiting on us to make that date. Mr. Jones did a presentation and she's available to get us on the right track. And what he's saying is that he got to get all, if you see all the work, he got to get it all together.
It's a lot.
And when we get it all together, first of all, we got to get it all together. And once we get it all together, then we're gonna sit down and plan this committee. Joyce is not gonna plan it. I got people just coming to me and they're just so excited because this is the first time they'll get their voice implemented in something. So I had all of these people, great people, coming to us. I'm like, well, when they know about Adrian, they know about us. So yes, Mr. Why would we bring him now when we don't have all our ducks together? We got to get everything together. Then Mr. White and David can come in, get you updated on some of the conversation we have had. Mr. Chris needs to be updated. Everybody needs to be updated on these conversations we have. We might have to do that. I don't know how we're going to do it, but maybe the same presentation you gave in that meeting, bring it out here to the floor and let the whole public see that we're not lacking in understanding. We just have to be careful. We can't bring 4 people into, but then we had to create, we create another law, unintended consequences. So we had 2 or 3 people, not trying to be sneaky, but it'd be 2 or 3 people. Sometimes I can't go into a meeting, I have to just be them 2. It might be just you 2. But we try to keep it at 3 when we're having those meetings. So, but the whole key is come back to the board and share. And I think that's where the upset is coming from, and I apologize because I could do it. I could have told you about it, but I didn't. So that's where we at, and let's just move forward. with your
And-
motion first?
Yes, and I want to add, I want to say this to Dr. Joyce too, because she says she's not comfortable on her new subcommittee, and I would like to know what that is so we can try to get together as a group, as a board, because we have to cover all those areas, and I appreciate your honesty. It is not about acting like you comfortable if you
And
not,
see, I think if
you-
I had started out with academic,
you'd have been
see,
okay.
he got all the information in his head, like I got all the information
Right,
with the community.
Right.
She
Right.
knows about, she's the chairperson of governance. So it would be uncomfortable for me to sit in that seat for such a short notice,
Okay.
we got so much to work
So
on.
this is what I want to.
But I can keep the position, but I can't serve in that capacity.
I say
'Cause you want to
This
switch.
is, let me, this is what I'm proposing. This is what I'm proposing. Because we want to be in line with our policies and we want to get out of here tonight.
Yes.
So if he's the chair of this new committee and you're the old person and you enjoy it, then you two work together. You can stay on that committee. I don't have a problem with making that happen. Let's just, but we want to be in line with, and we want, wait a minute, but we want to be in line with our bylaws and policies ourselves. So if you want to still work with Mr. Walker on that, I don't have a problem with that. Ms. Green was over academics and she's an authority in that area. So you're the chair, but if you want her to help you and get you comfortable, then we can do that. It's no problem with us getting together as a board and working with one another. We don't have to fall apart because we've made changes. What we have to do is get together and try to stay afloat. And I'm gonna apologize to Ms. McNeil for that in case, because maybe I didn't explain that clearly, that it was a change in positions and he goes with that subcommittee. I thought I did, but maybe I didn't make that clear. But the old person who was the chair on your committee, I am hoping that they, and I know they are, that would work with you as a new chair. And that way you can kind of get familiar with your new spot. Maybe you'll end up there again next year. I don't know. And then you'll still be available to work in your old capacity that maybe you fell in love with, that somebody is not as fluent as you are, they might need your assistance. So I don't have a problem with that. I just want us to be in order because all eyes are on us. And yes, let's move forward. Let's not spend so much time squabbling over nonsense. And then I'm gonna hear Ms. Green's motion, but Mr. Del Moroni had his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Del Moroni.
So, I'm going to start this off now as I did at our last meeting. When I was interviewed, I referenced the Central Whittier campus, and that something should be done there. And I believe that on that property should be built our high school.
Me too.
I believe that property is valuable. I believe it should be a state-of-the-art school. I had
We already
mentioned that,
did
as in like Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come, but I will add, if you build it, they will stay, and if you build it, they will return. The people who will come to the district will be people from outside of the district. As our students are now leaving to the districts, they will be the ones to return. But students outside the district will want to come to that campus
Yes.
because it will be the most highly advanced technical high school in the country. And our students will be able to leave there, whether it be they want to go into a trade, the military,
Absolutely.
to university. And we can partner that not only with the Mott Foundation, but our other community partners, including Kettering, including General Motors, the hospitals. We need to take positive advantage of what we have in this community. And some will say, well, why Central Whittier campus for the high school? And I would answer that because it's the College Cultural Center is there. It's because the expressways are there, because downtown is there, because there's a bus transfer station downtown there. It's very convenient for a location. I had mentioned about the success of the elementary school that was recently being built. By the success, I meant the demand for the of students who wanted to attend that school. Now, how they were doing academically, how they got along with each other, Whether there were good teachers or bad teachers, I don't know, but that all plays into a successful school. I was simply referring to the success of the demand of students that want to go there because I heard it was at capacity. I heard there was a waiting list for it. So I think as we move in our direction for Central Whittier campus, it just doesn't need to be another high school with new windows and building and frame. It needs to be a state-of-the-art. It has the most technology there. And in bringing in Mr. White, I believe it would, or the Mott Foundation, if he sends a representative or whoever, is we could get an idea of what they're willing to do to help us out. Maybe they just simply send over a consultant. Maybe they build an entire school. But if money's involved, we need to look at how can we leverage that money at the federal, state level to get even more money. So I'll throw a number out. 100 million might turn into 300 million all of a sudden, as opposed to just spending 100 million and going, okay, well, we still need more for the high school or whatever. Right? And I don't know. I have no idea what a new high school would cost, especially a state-of-the-art, a leading campus. And I think that would drive not only for students from outside the district to come in, but you make it a thing of who gets to attend this high school. Obviously, those who live in Flint, okay? And beyond that, it should always be those who live in Flint have first, let me say, dibs at the limited number of seats that are in the building. So then I think that can be a driving factor where people go, I need my student, my child to go to the state-of-the-art high school. And in order for me to move up on the list, my family, my child to move up on the list, I have to move into Flint. And believe me, we have, I'm the chairperson of the Genesee County Land Bank Citizens Advisory Council. Believe me, there are many lots in Flint, many empty lots.
Yeah,
But
they're
that,
selling.
you
That's
know,
another
so,
argument.
the school can be a driving force for economic development in Flint. Flint's lacking that right now, but that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Del Moral.
It sounds like Mr.
Ms. Green.
Demaroni was in the meetings we was having, right?
Yeah, everything, it
so
was
like-
like hitting the recording button,
Right,
just,
absolutely.
but I do want to say, when we talked to Mr. White about funds for this year, he's, so let me put that out there as well, because, I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of that, but that is what he said in our meeting. So it would behoove us
Well,
to,
they're coming at the Mott Foundation because they're saying if you can't help the ones you love, then we'll take the money. So I know, Thomas, that's a conversation that I asked you about, and you guys have not done that yet, right?
Yeah, so I'll gladly clarify.
Okay, please do.
The Mott Foundation has not made grants to support other school districts. However, and I think you all are aware with the summer and some of the issues between both organizations, absolutely, we fielded a number of calls from other organizations that were seeking funds and seeking resources in this area and beyond. So unequivocally, yes, there have been some requests. I think that the Mott Foundation remains committed to supporting Flint and supporting children in Flint. But absolutely, there are other organizations that have made requests. I won't name any other organizations in this space, in this public space. But yeah, absolutely, there are requests, but there have not been any grants to other organizations in that regard.
thank you. Well, yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Dr. Joy.
A lot of stuff you're talking about, we have been doing a lot of investigation, the 4 board members and 3 or 4, and Adrian. And we have reached out to Tron, the realtor company, All that property that you see, we own it scot-free. We don't own no taxes on it. They made it very clear to us. I think it was security bonds, some type of bonds that we
Bond, our
can.
bond,
Yeah, we are bond-free. We don't own nothing on the building. And so there are other resources that we have been looking at. We already looked at our center and we are talking about Northwestern. Rebranding our schools and be looking at, I'm reaching out to a couple of foundations and just talking, having these conversations. So I just want to let you know that we kind of own it. And we still got some property that President McIntyre was looking at, working with these realty companies. And so we got a lot to do and we got a lot of opportunities out there. And if you guys will get that, Mr. Jones, do you have that video that Kevin Walters put out on that training? I highly recommend it. And I'm gonna look at it again because it's very good information in about construction, remodeling and what we can do. And then we got to look at what building we're not going to use. So I think that given and saying and all of that, we're going to just keep moving forward. And I think that there's enough partners out here where we just have to move forward. If Mr. White money is tied up, it's just tied up for right now because he did bring it to us at the opportunity time that he had it. And it didn't go through, and that's understand. Nobody sits on good money. So saying all that to say that we're going to keep moving forward and get Mr. Jones' plans out there and keep in mind what the realtor company has told us, and that's what we need to be looking at as well.
and we also, with our ESSER funds that we had discussed and we had talked to, it cost about $4 to $6 million. It was quoted to build an elementary school. Now, we don't know how much for this state of our high school, but we did discuss Whittier and Central redeveloping it because we realized that it's some prime real estate. And that is why we have fought as a district to hang on to it tooth and nail, not take any little petty deals to give it up, because we realize it's a gold mine. Now, what we did say, we discussed, it's not wrote in stone. These are just dreams that I would like to see. I'm gonna speak for myself. I would like to see Whittier and Central become a school of the performing arts because it is over there in the Art Institute District. And our kids get to utilize the FIA for free. That means our students can take piano, all those classes for free. So I would like to see us utilize those opportunities. And then Northwestern with Brownell and Holmes being a STEM academy, we would like to see Northwestern revamped and be a STEM academy, high school for our students that want to be engineers and mathematicians and get the magnet thing going. We can't even bus kids from Freeman to Brownell at this point. We don't even have transportation for that. So we got bigger conversations as a district to have. I know we're talking about getting new buildings and that's what we want. But we got some kids in our district that want to stay. We can't even get them across town. We have to look at our busing routes. I'm hoping with Ms. Don Prey back that we can look at our funds and get a solid number as to what we have and look at our coffer and get on and do some real hard knockout, drag out, adding and subtracting and deciding what we can do with our dollars in our district, because we can't keep waiting on nobody else to save us. Nobody's gonna save us. We gotta save ourselves right about now. Is there anything else? Ms. Green was talking about her motion. Let's try to
Yeah,
get
I
out of
just
here.
need to be clear on what that is, so I know it matches what we talked about tonight, what that motion.
For the motion for me, to give you our blessing as a board to move forward with the advisory committee that we talked about. So, because to me, that's the first step in putting this thing together. Your plan with the community, the advisory committee, and the board involved. Everybody needs to be involved, but we've been talking a lot and we ain't making no moves. You know, everybody's conversation sounds great, but it's just conversation. You know what I'm saying? Let's move forward. And I think my motion for the advisory board would be the first step in that.
So with true transparency, I would say that what I would do if you voted this, the move would be to set up a community meeting for the community to have an opportunity to speak. Now, and in that session, we'll figure out how that session will look so that it's equitable to our community.
Right.
But after that community, we need to pull an advisory team together so that what the community has discussed we can start spinning our wheels of how this is going to
Making
look
progress.
and how we're going to make the progress. I'll be speaking to a smaller group. That's when community relations, we can bring a smaller group in and then it comes to the board. That's what I'm asking for us to be able to do.
And I am in full support of that. We support that.
I would suggest more than just one community meeting.
Absolutely.
Oh,
We
no,
have
it'll be
to come back to the
it'll be
community.
an
You know,
ongoing
morning, day,
conversation.
night.
Yeah, it'll be an
Absolutely.
ongoing conversation. And I would also like to challenge our board, since we have this training coming up next week. And we've been told after our training, we're going to look at our plant Maria Cressa piece. Start writing down what you would like to see in your schools, whichever ones those are going to be, whatever our visions are, let's write them down before we get to the class. In case we need some professional help, we'll be there with them. Then when we leave those training classes, we can have a real conducive, already put together plan. So when we touch back down here, we can start executing because the experts are there and we are going to be amongst them, lawyers, all that. So let's really put the work in and come back and have something tangible. Let's not come back talking about we planning. Let's plan ahead what we like to see in our schools. We know whatever buildings we end up with, this will be what we like to see in them. And then that way, when they do the community piece, we'll have the board piece, and we ain't got to wait on the board. And by the time the community wrap up, we got our piece. We can direct our superintendent on the strategic plan, which moves the district forward, which Mr. Del Maroney asked about, and we can go on and get this done. Because I'm like Ms. Green, I'm tired of we got money, we got good thinkers. Why aren't we getting down to business? And so I think before we leave, I think I'm gonna also call True and let them know this piece that we were gonna give to the community. Let's get out the way. And I'd also like to say to Mr. Del Marone, because he mentioned the developers last time, I say let's be like Powers in the school for the deaf. Because in order for Powers to get that land from them, they had to build him a new school too. Powers put some money on that new school for the school of the deaf. So we need to consider that. You want our land for free, you can have it. The land for free, but we're gonna need a building in exchange. It's called bartering. Maybe we won't get no, and I don't know if that's legal, but maybe we won't get no dollars. But if you want our land, you don't have no land, we don't have no building. We'll give you some land for a building. Let's talk about that. Let's get down to business. Let's cut those to make this happen. But I'm done. Well, I don't know about December, but we could work on that. We could work on that. I don't know about this. Ms. McIntyre, and we're gonna wrap it up. Let's go around and try to get
God,
out.
I hope, can you hear me?
We can.
God, I really hope we don't replicate the School for the Deaf and the Powers deal, because that
Well, no, not exactly. We're gonna do
caused
better.
such dissension in the community, and it was not a good thing.
But we
If I may, I've heard from Dr. Joyce the term "we," and I heard that Adrian and Dr. Joyce were meeting with someone. And I'm just trying to get an understanding on the "we" and when and who they met with, in what capacity, and when were we going to be informed other than tonight?
So this past week, board member Adrian took on a new job as the community relations committee leader.
Yes.
In an effort to understand how we're going to move this ESSER fund and how we're going to involve the community, it's his job to ensure that we're doing that. And so he came to meet with me to talk about that. And Dr. Joyce was also in that meeting to discuss that. That meeting allowed me to speak to board members about the envisioning of how we move this forward. And that's how this information came out.
Okay.
And so that meeting just took place Friday. So that's why they know about the advisory, my thoughts about an advisory team moving forward. So I spoke to them about that as he asked me about ESSER funds. And so now we come today, a community member spoke, we're having this discussion. So that just happened.
And I can see a meeting being held. Dr. Joyce was, let me say, past chair, but on that community relations committee are two other members also. And I would think that they, we got to stay within the open meeting guidelines, would be part of that discussion also. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I just want to say, I'm a part of that committee.
Same.
And I did talk to Mr. Walker when I was out of town taking care of some stuff. So I wasn't there physically, but I was able to share my thoughts and my hopes and concerns. So
Yeah,
maybe that'll help.
and I'll just chime in. My main purpose, again, of meeting with Mr. Jones coming into the new space was to build an understanding for how this committee should operate.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first official committee meeting, right? So you had an opportunity come in, and again, my big push at this table has been around the ESSER dollars,
Yeah.
how we're going to use them, but how we're going to get the community involved in as well. So moving forward, it will be to bring, again, have a meeting in person with Danielle, with any other board member, but also my board member, Pastor Gilbert, at that table to talk about what the plan should be moving forward so that we can come back to the board and get that process going.
Yeah,
So no more than three of us can meet at one time.
right.
So our community relations members are the chair,
Yeah.
Adrian Walker, Danielle Green, and myself.
Is that who's on that?
That's who's on it.
Because I don't know who's on
Oh,
it.
yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
can't keep.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I'm reading that is just issued to us. I don't know.
But
What is
Chris, when you said three, or like, for instance, you guys meet, I can come into your meeting and I can sit on the side.
She's not on the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not on committee. But at this point, what we were saying is that it was so much information. I have gathered people named to be on the community, on this committee, had those conversations with them and moving it forward. This was way before all of this happened. And so I'm bringing Adrian up the part, giving him the list of the people that I have contact that wants to be on this committee. And so it's a lot of things had happened. And then all of a sudden we kind of switched meetings. So I believe when in the next meeting you come in, you'll see, we'll sit on the subcommittee. And I just probably sit back because by that time, Mr. Walker would have everything together. But when we get to rolling out in the community and doing stuff together, we're gonna all work as a board, as a board. And that's just where my passion was at, because I had put so much energy and time in doing this and spent my money in galvanizing this stuff. So that's where we at.
All right, is there any other, is that it? What's going on? Is all clear at the board table? Is there any other questions? All right.
Get ready to call for the question.
Seeing there is none. I'm-
There's a, aren't we?
Oh, is we still in the middle of this? Jesus, that's the longest discussion ever.
Make a motion to give Kevin the blessing to move forward. with this
Okay, she
advisory
made a
board.
motion.
I done made it 2 or 3 times.
And it was supported. Now, that was the discussion. Now we finna vote. As I call your name, yes to accept the motion or no. Miss Laura.
I don't, so like, what is the motion? To give
Ms. Green,
Kevin a
say-
blessing. I don't
No,
understand what
no.
that means.
You say what now?
Like, I don't understand giving the blessing for.
He just explained, when I said the blessing, I was a little vague. Okay, I apologize for that. But my motion was for give Mr. Jones the blessing to move forward, to develop the advisory board. That means meeting with the community, developing a board so we can move forward. That's it. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that?
You already have that though, don't you?
So being able to have that meeting with the community, allow the meeting to happen with the community, and then produce an advisory board of the community that will represent the community to get the work going, and then bring that into the community relations, or however the board decides that other team with me, and then it comes to the board. But I have to move on getting this out to our public, get our PR firm to say, hey, we're about to have this meeting. And we want our community to come to talk about renovations and rebuilding and the future of Flint Community Schools.
Thank you.
So I got to get that out to the
Okay.
public, get a meeting going. And if we want them to have something to say about the ESSER and the ESSER 3, I got to be able to get that going because there's two things here. Miss Kiana has to get that application in. So you got renovations. I think our public should be able to have something to say
Right.
about renovations. And then we talk about the utilization, right? There's all of this has to just get going. And I'm willing to make sure we get the things going, get the people in, start talking to the community and the community partners and the grassroots about an advisory team. Of course, I want to send that to you right away so that you see what that looks like. And then we move forward.
So I did ask like how the advisory team would be selected.
Okay, let me say, excuse
I mean,
me. I'm not trying to be rude. Hold on. Excuse me, Ms. Laura. Can you make an appointment with Mr. Kaplan so he can explain how he gonna do that selection or whatever it is? Because he done said this several times. So now at this point, to be fair to everyone here, can you two get an appointment so he can explain his vision to you? Oh, yeah. I mean, because we don't, because he might not have it wrote down. So
Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
He said it.
I'd like to make a point of order here.
Yes, sir.
You call for the question.
We did.
Mhm.
And I'm trying.
You have to
vote.
execute it properly.
Yes, I do.
Sister Danielle has made her
Yes.
motion.
Yes, you.
Several times.
Thank you,
It's been
Pastor
2 to 3 times.
Yes,
It's been properly second 2 to 3 times.
yes, sir.
And
Time to vote.
the
Yes, sir.
the horse has come in. The horse wants a drink of water now.
Okay, all right, we're gonna take these votes.
Wrote it long
As I
enough.
call your name, listen to the pastor. You remember this in that EAB board meeting, you hear me? Now, we're gonna take a roll call vote at this time, but I call your name, yes to support or no, because you don't support. Ms. Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Ms. Joyce McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Danielle Green,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chris
Yes.
Delarose, Pastor Gilbert,
Yes,
Mr. Adrian Walker.
Yes.
And myself, Carol McIntosh, 7, the vote passes, 7 yes, no opposed.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta say something.
Okay, go ahead.
With the job fair, we're supposed to vote on the job
Oh,
fair.
job fair. Let's talk about that, Mr. Kevlin.
Mr. Parker used to sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. You're so kind. It's always a pleasure to see you.
that's all right, Brother Parker. You can stand up there.
The board, okay, we must have a vote. At this time, I'd like to make a motion and move that we have a job fair
So moved.
starting next week, because we don't want this to take, next week, today is what, Wednesday? By Monday,
Mhm.
we want to hear about what day the job fair is starting on, and we want the job fair to be multiple weeks, whether they whether they dropping their resume off to the district, however you gonna do it. We need it 2 weeks straight, because the first week, people ain't gonna know, and they gonna catch on late. So we're gonna give them a chance next week, because we short on manpower.
Yeah.
We not gonna keep drowning. We're not gonna keep putting more on people than they can bear, because that make them wanna quit. We need some efficiency. We gotta move ahead, and we ain't waiting on nobody. You either catch up, roll with us, get out the way, or get rolled over. This horse is pulling out, okay? Job fair. You hear me, Mr. Kaplan?
So moved.
I don't care who come, who go. Next week, we need a job fair. Share it through the district. Because if we don't have this job fair, we finna start holding people accountable. It don't take this long to have no job fair. We talked about this back when it was COVID. We still ain't had no job fair. Okay, so is a motion, we have a motion?
It's been moved. and
It's been
supported.
moved and properly supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. When I call your name, signify by saying yes or nay for no. Ms. Laura,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Del Maroney,
Yes.
Pastor Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
It's a yes for myself. The vote passes 7 yes. We having a job fair and it's kicking off starting next week and it's gonna run for a couple weeks. And if we don't get enough applications, it's gonna keep rolling till we get staffed up. We want radio advertisement, Mr. Kevlin. So get with our PR people, put it out there on the radio, more than one station, DZ 105, 107, 98.9, 95, all of them. We don't want it just on the website that we know ain't nobody looking at. None of that nonsense. I ain't kidding. Don't make me get to putting out flyers in the grocery store. If we got to, we finna get some people up in here. Okay, is there any other conversation? Mr. Del Marone.
Is this working? Yeah, there we go. So I want to raise a couple concerns. One is on the student representative to the board. When will that start back up? I think we should, we're talking about getting the community involved. I want to get the students involved, bring that back. I don't know why we don't have a student rep right now. I would like to make a motion that the board be provided with all contracts that are outstanding, whether it be with unions. I don't know how many contracts are out there, whether it be with the unions, administration, outside contractors,
Okay, we're gonna, okay, so,
and with the expiration dates being highlighted.
okay, we will do that. We will forward that to Ms. Sharice because she did speak about pulling our contracts and looking them over. So I think that's a matter of Mr. Kevlin just having a conversation with her because she's working on that piece.
You're saying a motion's not needed?
If
then
you
for
want to
that?
make a motion, you can, but
that's
she
what I was doing.
said, she just said that back there that she was,
It's being done, and also there's an assessment being done of all 30-party contracts and how much it's costing us. And if there's any savings, we're going to be able to see that. That's going to be done by December 1st. So all that's being done right now.
Okay.
And also, Ms. Sharice already told me that she's going to be pulling contracts. So I don't know if that
yeah.
is
So,
necessary for a
so
motion,
that's
but
what,
it's happening.
that's why
Okay.
I said
So long
that.
as so long as it
Never,
happens.
never denying anybody's motion, but the work is already in progress.
Okay, as long as it happens.
But if you want the motion.
We spoke at the last meeting on an organizational chart. When can we expect to get that?
Okay, so so I would, because there's the person that's working on it is not at work currently. Next week, you should be able to receive that
Okay.
chart. I've seen that chart, but there's some discrepancies that I had with bringing that to you with some mistakes in it. So you should have that the next board meeting you have, or do
Okay.
you want it before that?
Okay.
I can
We
email it.
want it whenever you can get it prepared.
Okay.
He just wants the information proper when
Okay.
you get it.
One other concern I have is, my motto is kind of like students first, safety first, students first. Adjacent to Southwestern Academy, it may even be on our property. They're taking all that cement from 69. I believe they were, I know, I called, I think it was the EPA over at one point 2 years back. They're grinding it up out there. And I'm wondering about the dust
Yeah.
and how it's being filtered out of our schools. I don't know if the students are out on
And
recess,
who get, and
whatever.
I just want to say this too.
But-
Who gave them permission to do that on our property? Did
That
the
I don't know.
administration approve
Is that
that?
on our
I don't
property?
know anything about
Well, we
it.
need to check on that because we got some people possibly dumping and pouring chemicals. God only knows. That ain't, it's not on our
Okay.
property. 'Cause
But
I thought it
it's
was.
certainly adjacent to it. So again,
Okay.
safety first. I mean, I noticed a few
'Cause
years,
it was on our little spot in front. Okay.
I noticed that a few years back, it was just a cloud of dust in the evening because they work in the evening, they have lights on, and then there, you can see that it's a fine particle dust. It is not good to breathe whatsoever.
Right.
And so somehow we need to work I
Well,
don't
we
know,
probably have
through
to,
legal to find out.
we'll have to talk to Ms. Sharice about how to go about handling that. Maybe she can direct us, because surely here, none of us on this board know how to deal with that. So we're gonna have to ask legal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. And
Laura?
Laura, sorry, thank you. Um, I believe, well, let me say this. I will still move to get a copy of those contracts. And this
Okay.
is a motion to move to get a copy of all outstanding contracts with the expiration date, the cost, who they're between, third party, unions, whoever, administration contracts, just so that we know when contracts are expiring. Well, I'll wait for a second before I get into discussion.
It's been moved and properly seconded, and we'll discussion.
So one of the reasons I want this is to know when contracts are expiring so we can plan for that. So if we want to try and bring services back into the district, we know that, as an example, that contract's going to expire in a year and a half, so we can make plans so that we're not told a month ahead of time that the contract's expiring, we need to renew it, and it's too late to do any type of study, economic study, feasibility study to see if it's worthwhile bringing it back in. So that's one of the reasons. I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's in an Excel,
In
but
some type of spreadsheet, because they would have to be able to look at it.
I'm sure our business office does have those contracts between state and federal and business. We should have contracts of our third party, and also in HR, we should have contracts of employees. So between the three, we need to get it together and we'll get it to you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing there is none, we're gonna take a roll call vote, and when I call your name, yes, signify yes to receive, or no, to not accept the motion. Ms. Laura? Ms. McNeil?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Del Maroney?
Yes.
Pastor Gilbert, wake up.
Yes.
Mr.
I was
Walker?
resting my
Yes.
eye.
And it's yes for myself. Motion passes 7 yes and none objecting, none opposing. Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing there is none, we will now close this meeting out. Our next board meeting, since I wrapped my paperwork up, is the 17th, said Miss Danielle, of November. At what time? At 6:30. And at this time, the present time is 11:22. Lord have mercy, we ain't having two things on our agenda and we get out at midnight. This meeting is adjourned. We ought to